Sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm so glad that you could join us today. We have another wonderful program for you. Caregiver Solutions Info Show is in its third year, bringing information and solutions to caregivers who are caring for somebody who can't care for themselves, particularly somebody who has some form of dementia, like vascular dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or a number of other types of dementia. So this is an educational program. It's for the caregiver, it's about the caregiver, and it's also about dementia and letting you know what you need to know before you need to know it. If you're joining us via the internet on caregiversolutions.info, then you can see us and we're live either on your computer or your smartphone, or you might be listening to us on the iHeartRadio app under WNN 1470. We're live out of Boca Raton. And again, this is a show for you, the caregiver, the unpaid family caregiver. We're going to share, as we have for the past 3 years, on lots of different topics about things you need to know before someone you know gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's, what you need to know during the journey as a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's or other related dementia, and what you need to know after you lose someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. So it covers everything. It's a journey, and as a journey, you put one foot ahead of the other, one step at a time. And so every week, every Tuesday, 5 to 6 p.m., this show is here for you. And so if you know somebody that doesn't know about the program, let them know how they can watch or listen. It'd be very helpful. And we also give away a free book called the 36-Hour Day Book during the program. Absolutely free with no obligation. So you'll want to listen for that phone number so you can call in and get that free book. So today we have a couple experts as my guests. We're going to be talking today about how someone had their personal journey with their mom who had dementia, what she did about it, and then we're going to be talking to someone, a professional, who has the expertise to help through that process. So calling in from Tampa, Florida today, my first guest is Sandy Kelly. Sandy, are you there?
Thank you.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on the show today. I'm very excited to talk to you, and I want to thank you ahead of time for being here to tell your personal story. So we'll get right into it because you actually are a former caregiver helping to take
Correct.
care of your mother who was diagnosed with dementia, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to hear your story because everyone's story is different. Obviously, there's different situations, different circumstances, but we can all learn from each other, especially caregivers, hearing it directly from another caregiver who has walked in their shoes, so to speak. So tell me about your mom, and what were the very first signs that anybody noticed that something was out of the ordinary or something was wrong? What was happening?
Well, she used to go to my daughter's house on Tuesdays and do her laundry, and it got to the point where one night she could not find the bathroom in my daughter's house, and she had been going there for a number of years. So that was a sign. And then she had a few fender benders, and she was kind of hiding it like, it really didn't happen. It wasn't me. And she started having trouble putting sentences together, and we started noticing. So in 2008, she was taken to her family doctor who diagnosed her with dementia. And at that time, she was living alone, but across the street from my sister who didn't work. And Mom finally realized, I'm not okay. I'm really not okay. She gave her car keys up willingly.
Wow.
And my sister, she actually said, I know I'm not okay to drive, which I don't think that usually happens with the people. I think you usually have to pry them out of their hands. But she willingly gave hers up.
So it must have scared her to have a fender bender.
Exactly.
So after she gave up the car keys, how did her life change? And when did you realize that she needed even more assistance?
Well, my sister would keep a check on her across the street. Every morning she'd go over there. And it became, we actually unplugged the stove because we didn't want her cooking anymore because she would go off and forget. And she was forgetting even who we were. So my sister moved her into her house with her.
Now, how did that...
was married.
But how did that work out if Mom didn't really know who you were? Was she agreeable to go and have someone live with her, or did she become suspicious or paranoid, or did she have the kind of personality that she just kind of went along with everything?
She had that personality, but she was suspicious. There were moments you could see in her eyes that she knew who you were at that moment, but there were other moments when she didn't realize who you were. And once we moved her into my sister's house, it got so bad she started the wandering at night. So my sister was actually sleeping outside her bedroom door because Mom would just get up and leave.
So your sister... Your sister literally slept on the floor in front of your mother's bedroom door to keep your mother from coming out to wander around the house?
Exactly. Because she would find her way out of the house. She would. Even if the door was locked, she could figure out how to actually get out and be on the street.
And how long did your sister continue to sleep on the floor? That certainly couldn't have been too uncomfortable for her.
It was about 3 months, and then I had been in the Medicare healthcare arena, so I knew of Arden Courts, and I knew the kind of care that they furnished and that they knew what to do with patients of Alzheimer's and dementia. So that was my suggestion. So we put her she was actually placed there on a Monday, and I went by on Thursday, and I was asked, did your mom sew? And I'm like, yeah, my mom made all her clothes for me and my daughter as we were growing up. And they said, oh, my gosh, she's been sewing every day. We asked her the first day, and she stayed occupied, and she was more restful at night.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So was your sister as really the primary caregiver at that time because you were working full-time and your sister was not? Was she reluctant to give up this duty of being the caregiver, or was she pretty much done with it at that point?
She was pretty exhausted at that point. And, having a marriage and, having to take care of Mom at the same time, it just was not going well.
And your sister probably found out it's a full-time job.
Yes, and it's not an 8-hour-a-day job. It's a 24-hour-a-day job.
Yes. And I'm sure sleeping on the floor in front of Mom's door, besides being uncomfortable, she probably didn't even get good sleep because she had to sleep
No,
with one eye and one ear open, probably.
correct.
And did it affect your sister's relationship with her husband, being that they were there together? How did he handle it from your point of view?
Well, he was very patient, and he cared about Mom, too, which is a big, important thing. But quite honestly, having a marriage where your wife is not there for you, she's only there for her mom 90% of the time, is just not workable. And a lot of your family caregivers, they get worn out, totally worn out, and they don't realize that some of them are sacrificing time with their children as well as their significant other.
That's true. That's very true. And so this is a learning process. And as you went through this journey, you and your sister with your mother, I'm sure you learned lots of things along the way that you didn't know before.
Oh, my gosh, yes, did we ever.
Mm-hmm. You had to probably learn how to communicate with her in a different way. Did you have to, deal with her from a daughter's point of view, or did you have to deal with her from a professional, because you were in the home health field and you really were out there with professionals, and you were in the business of providing personnel to help people in homes, just like your own situation. So it's almost like it was part of what you do every day as far as educating people, correct?
Correct. And, I was able to, get her to stay with her insurance plans that she had, Medicare and all that. So that was really important. And, keep her as well as we could keep her.
Yes. So you mentioned that when you were in the home health field at that time, you were a marketing director visiting several different memory care or assisted livings, and that's how you knew about Arden Courts. But what was it about Arden Courts in particular that you felt that would be the best place for your mom? Was there something that you felt would meet her needs better?
I totally felt that they were the perfect place for her because they really looked at each individual individually, and like the sewing. I mean, to ask my mom, what would you like to do? Because a lot of places they're just like they put them in there and they're just there. So I knew about, they interacted with the residents there. And I also knew that it was a safe place. I knew how you could go through the door and they could walk all around and they were totally safe. And that was really important to me, that Mom be safe. And there were enough caregivers in the facility. So I really felt that was the best place for her. They had thought of many things to help with dementia. And
particularly,
they were above and beyond.
Right, and particularly because the fact that your mother liked to wander and go through doors, she could go through outside doors at Arden Courts and be outside in a safe, secure environment,
exactly.
And walk around, and you didn't have to worry that she was going to get lost.
That is so true, because they do have the whole circle that you can walk, and you can walk in the courtyard. And I knew she was getting the sunshine she needed and the help she needed.
Well, I'm glad that you found the right place for your mom there in Tampa. But when this was all happening, one of the things that is necessary before you can move a loved one into a memory care community is that there has to be a responsible party. And your mom was widowed, of course. And so did you or your sister already have durable power of attorney, or was that something that you hadn't thought to have gotten yet?
We had not gotten to that point, but we knew we needed to do something really quick, and that's what people need to know now. You need to get the assets, everything in order before the crisis, before the last moment. I was very fortunate. An attorney in the Tampa Bay area contacted me and asked me what I thought about a marketing position. Therefore, I now work for an elder law attorney, and he is right here with us. And he is above and beyond with the elder law, the Medicaid asset protection, the VA aid and attendance, and he is here.
Well, that's great because we're going to be talking to him in just a few minutes. That's great. Your boss is on the phone, and we're all together.
Yes.
But a couple more questions from you, Sandy.
Sure.
So did you already know what needed to be done, or did someone tell you, or did you already have an idea, or were you just not really knowing what you needed to do, the steps that had to be taken?
Well, being that I was in the Medicare home health industry and I had actually known the attorney I now work for a number of years, I knew, that the things that needed to be put in place. I knew that we needed power of attorney, we needed health surrogate, we needed wills, we need trust, we need to protect her assets. So I did have kind of a thought, but I am not an attorney.
Right.
You can't do it yourself.
That's right.
You have to go through an elder law attorney.
And you had, unlike a lot of caregivers, a little bit of an advantage knowing personally an elder law attorney, a professional to help you. But now that you're in that field, you went from home health marketing to marketing for an elder law attorney there in Tampa. How does this experience, or how has this experience with your mother, with everything that you and your sister went through, how does that help you now to help others that might be in a similar situation?
I am really strongly promoting that people get these things in place. And there's so many people, they don't even think about it. They just don't have that in mind. And my goal is to be out there and get everywhere I can get and let people know, don't wait. Get these things in place. We are aging. All of us are going to age. And we do need to have these things in place before the crisis. So having come from the Medicare home health arena where I would see people that really needed health care, then I started from this position seeing that people really need legal assistance.
So you have a mission that you're fulfilling every day as you're working, it sounds like.
Every day.
That's wonderful. And we're going to be talking to your boss, Michael Angelo Mortellaro, in just a minute, but first, we're going to take a break, and I want to thank you again, Sandy, for coming on and sharing your story and telling us, as from a caregiver point of view and also as a professional, what caregivers need to do before they need to do it. So thank you very, very much. We're going to go to this commercial break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info. I want to thank Sandy Kelly. We just spoke with her on the phone from Tampa. Her mother was diagnosed with dementia, and she helped care for her mom. And now we're going to be talking to her boss, who is an elder law attorney. His name is Michael Angelo Mortellero from the law office of Michael Angelo Mortellero in Tampa, Florida. A little bit about him. He graduated with honors from Florida International University College of Law in 2006. His practice areas include estate planning, probate, Medicaid asset protection, and VA benefits. His office services clients in Tampa, Hillsborough County, and throughout the adjoining counties within his areas of expertise, including elder law legal needs. As a matter of fact, he has 10 years experience in elder law, and he devotes his time and his resources to educate the community and his clients in elder law affairs. Also, when he is not doing all of that, he serves his community and participates in many civic activities. So he is a member of the Tampa Rough Riders, which is a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. He serves on the ethics committee of Gulfside Regional Hospice. He does extensive pro bono work with the ALS Foundation and the Small Assisted Living Foundation of Coalition for Assisted Living Facilities. And he's also been a contributor for both Fox News and ABC Action News. So all of that being said, welcome, Michael Angelo.
I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you could join us. We spoke to Sandy a moment ago, and she sings your praises all over that Tampa area. And when I met her, I was so impressed with her and her energy. I just knew that we had to bring you both onto the program and let you share your expertise to help others that might be suffering in the same way that Sandy and her family did, having a parent with Alzheimer's or dementia. So
well, we love having Sandy on board, and she does a great job. She advocates not only for my business, but she really cares. And having had her own experience as a caregiver, she brings a depth of knowledge and compassion to the table that few marketers in this industry can do.
Absolutely. Well, again, I enjoyed meeting her and wanted to set this up, and so I'm so happy that you could join us today on the show live here. So you have a lot of areas that you help people, all kinds of people, and there are people that have special needs, especially those that are caregivers and caring for somebody else, and so you really can help a wide variety of people through all of the areas that you practice. There's so much that we could talk about today in the short amount of time that we have. So I thought maybe we could highlight some of your areas and talk about some bullet points, if you will, of some of the things that you feel would be the most important things for someone to know. If someone knew nothing about the topics we're going to be talking about, if you could highlight a few things that would be the most important thing that you would want to convey to them to get maybe a fire going under them or get them to a point where they need to seek more information so that they will have an easier time doing what they do as a caregiver and caring for somebody else. So how does that sound?
Sure.
Okay,
I think that oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, let's just start off the bat and talk about estate planning and just, give us some bullet points and why it's important and who needs to do some estate planning, and we'll just take it from there. It's all yours.
Perfect. Well, we tell everyone here, and people think we're joking, but it's serious, is that elder law starts at age 40, and pretty much by any definition, a 40-year-old is not considered elderly or a senior, but when we're looking at providing for potential future care costs, the idea of starting at age 40 starts to make a lot of sense. The younger you are, and it doesn't have to be 40, but 40, 50, 60, there's more opportunities for whether it be financial products like long-term care insurance, whether it's utilizing revocable and irrevocable trust to protect your assets from that dreaded Medicaid spend down or VA benefit analysis. the earlier you get started, the better. So that's the general proposition. On that note, if anybody who lived in Florida back in the early 2000s certainly still remembers the Terry Schiavo case, and that is really still 20 years later our poster child for it is never too early to start general estate planning. If you remember the Terry Schiavo case, it was an unfortunate case of a woman who was in her late 20s, early 30s, suffered a catastrophic health care event that left her in a persistent vegetative state. There was a disagreement between her husband and her parents as to whether she wanted to remain on life support or not, and 10 years in court, hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, unnecessary, that could have been cured by a 3-page document known as a living will. But hey, who in your 20s or 30s thinks that you might end up on life support tomorrow? The reality is, while statistically it will happen to us as we get older, it certainly can happen, and it doesn't have to be a dementia-related illness. It could be a car accident with a traumatic brain injury. Could put a perfectly healthy person today in a situation tomorrow where they cannot make their own decisions, and they need someone to help make those decisions for legal, financial, and medical.
Absolutely. So when we talk about estate planning, that includes all these special documents under the estate planning, like power of attorney or durable power of attorney and living will. These are the documents that would be the ones that would be like the most important and the ones that everybody would need, right?
Absolutely. Young, old, rich, poor, doesn't matter, because the reality is if you lose capacity, whether through a cognitive issue like dementia, or whether it could be a stroke, or it could be, again, a car accident with a traumatic brain injury, if you lose capacity to make your own decisions, well, then ethically an attorney cannot allow you to sign a document, even if they believe that is in your best interest, if you do not understand the nature of the document, what it does, and why you're doing it. So if you lose capacity and you don't have a good set of documents in place, then our only last resort is the legal option of a court-appointed guardianship. Quite often can cost $5,000 to $10,000 to set it up, and legal fees and court costs and filing fees and all those things, as well as then needing to be represented by an attorney every year for the rest of your life, which comes with additional fees and costs. Majority of time, that entire guardianship process can be avoided with a good set of, simple power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, and living will.
So I think the word estate planning can be misleading for some people who, you mentioned earlier, it's necessary for everyone, rich, poor, whatever. But people seem to think estate means you have a lot of money or a big mansion, that this is your estate. But it doesn't mean that at all. What it's referring to under estate planning is that these simple documents, these simple legal documents, and they could be simple, I'm sure they could be complicated too, but they're necessary for everyone no matter. So, I think if we say we need these life planning documents, we need life planning, I think a lot of people would understand that better. I mean, I might be on a crusade to change, the terminology, but it's life planning, not necessarily just what you have, but it's for your whole entire life.
Well, that's a great point, and so I think that draws a distinction between a traditional estate planning attorney and an elder law attorney, is that an estate planning attorney quite often is more concerned with what happens from the time of death to the time that your assets get to your beneficiaries. That's kind of the probate process, or whether you utilize a trust to avoid the probate process, but really the action starts at the time of death. Well, as an elder law attorney, I am certainly concerned with that, but I am equally or more concerned with what happens from the moment I meet a prospective or potential client to the time they pass away. Because, as you know, and you've probably quoted the statistics, that according to the Alzheimer's Association, every 58 seconds someone's diagnosed with dementia. Almost $270 billion spent last year on dementia care. If you don't plan appropriately for the potential catastrophic financial costs of dealing with memory care, by the time you pass away, you very well could have little or no money left, in which case the best drafted trust or will means nothing if there is nothing left to distribute at the time of your passing. And even worse than not having anything at the time of your passing is running out of money while you still need a high level of care. And I have clients that have been in memory care units at, $5,000 to $7,000 a month for 10, 12, 14 years. Most folks don't have the funds available and the resources available for an extended memory care cost structure. And again, that's what gets back to the elder law starts at 40. Find a good financial advisor. People buy life insurance, they buy health insurance, but many people miss out on the value of long-term care insurance. And so by injecting your nest egg, let's say, with some really meaningful and quality products to help offset the future potential cost of care, it relieves a lot of stress in times of needing that care.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point with the long-term care, because usually by the time someone's 60, they might be starting to think about it, but it's very expensive after the age of 60 and over. The premiums are very expensive, and a lot of times people put off that decision, and the underwriters of the insurance companies are not going to underwrite you if you already have a diagnosis of some life-threatening disease like, an Alzheimer's, because they say, well, no, we already know what the end result is, and we're not going to issue you that. So that's a very, very good point. I want to talk some more about this, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. So stay with us, and we'll have much more on elder law planning, estate planning from Michael Angelo. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has close to 50 communities throughout the United States, 10 of them right here in Florida. Arden Courts loves to help people, and not only are they there to help your loved one that has some form of dementia, but they're there for you too as the caregiver, and they're giving away this book for free. It's called The 36-Hour Day. I highly recommend that if you do not have this book, to call the toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410, and tell them that you heard about the offer on the Caregiver Solution Info program, and they will get your name and address and send a book directly to you. This is a wonderful resource. It has lots of explanations and tips and definitions and helpful things for you as a caregiver. And it's appropriately named the 36-Hour Day. As Sandy said, it's more than 24 hours. It's one person, just can't do it all. And caregivers feel like they're trying to cram in 36 hours into a 24-hour day. So this book is very helpful. So call today, 888-478-2410 and get the 36-hour day book. You'll be really glad that you did. So, my guest on the phone right now, joining me from Tampa, is attorney Michelangelo Mortarello. I'm sorry if I messed up that name. Is it something that I'm saying wrong? Why don't you say it for me right, Michelangelo?
No, it's good enough for government work. Michelangelo Mortellero, but growing up with that name, it gets butchered daily, so it's okay.
Okay, well, I apologize if I messed it up.
Not a problem.
So thank you for joining us as we're talking about elder law and planning. You said something that I just want to focus in for 1 second before we move on to the next topic. You were talking about the differences between an elder law attorney and maybe just an estate planning attorney, because as an elder law, you are there to help them through what's happening in their life, not just to be there at the end with the estate planning and set it up for the end, which makes me really glad to know that people that come into you, that come in their 40s, say, you said it starts when you're 40 at least. It could start sooner, as we talked about, but if you're talking in your 40s, people's lives change, obviously, as they get older, and with your expertise and the things that you provide, I can see that someone would stay with you or you would stay with them throughout their life journey, because as conditions changed in their life, they would need to make those changes in the estate planning. So I see that as a big difference too. It's just not a one and done. It's sort of flowing and ever changing. Is that kind of a good analogy?
Absolutely. It really is a relationship for life and even after, because, of course, we still focus on the post-life asset distribution and administration. But your relationship with your elder law attorney should be similar to your financial advisor. You should have regular meetings, regular updates. And life has a way of throwing us curveballs. The client I saw before coming onto your show, we were set up to handle VA benefits for her dad, who was in an assisted living facility. His health condition has just taken a turn for the worst. He's now in a hospital. They're now talking about skilled nursing. And so we are now midstream into a VA benefit application for Veterans Aid and Attendance, and now switching over to a Medicaid asset protection plan for a potential $10,000 or more a month in nursing home care, compared to a $5,000 a month assisted living bill. So things can change literally overnight. And so many elder law attorneys, and I don't understand how that works, but many of them will either only do VA or only do Medicaid. But in my opinion, whoever you decide to use in your local area or wherever, find one that does both. Certainly if you're a veteran. If you're not a veteran, then it's okay if they only do Medicaid. But you want someone that can coordinate benefits, because it can be wonderful financially. If you have a married veteran who, let's say, has dementia, and on top of the husband and wife's income and maybe pension, Social Security, we can also layer $2,230 a month for VA benefits, and if both of them needed assisted living, we can add $1,100 to $1,400 each on top of that for Medicaid. So I can generate for a husband and wife that need care, $4,500 to $5,000 a month on top of their income to help them offset the cost of care.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, especially if someone is a veteran. But why is it important, if someone is a veteran, why is it important to coordinate, use that word coordinate, to coordinate benefits between VA and Medicaid? Why is that important, and why do you need a person to coordinate that?
Well, both government agencies sometimes, I think, mean well but miss the mark on the details. And so you have two different government agencies that don't talk to each other, both of them sometimes looking for a reason to deny your application. And so what will often happen is if you try to coordinate VA and Medicaid, you get the VA benefit turned on. Well, then you apply for Medicaid. Well, Medicaid sometimes wants to count your VA money as income, which then they tell you you're over income for the Medicaid program, and they try to deny you. So you have to set up what's called a qualified income trust to fix that problem. And then once you fix that problem and Medicaid starts flowing, then sometimes VA will say, oh, well, you're getting help from Medicaid now, so you don't need us, so we're going to cut you off. So then you got to dance back to the other administration. So it is tricky to do. There's very few attorneys that can successfully coordinate those benefits. And believe it or not, there are some elder law attorneys out there that will tell you you cannot get both at the same time because they haven't figured out how to do it. It is certainly difficult, and I would suggest that the vast majority of folks trying to get these benefits, again, at the same time, you probably want to use a professional that has done it before, because chances are you'll lose one or both of the benefits in the process of trying to get both at the same time.
I absolutely agree with you. Just from my experience talking with many caregivers who have tried to make application on their own, going, on the website, the state website for Medicaid, or filling out a form from the VA, and found out that after waiting sometimes for many months, they were denied. And when they actually investigated to find out why they were denied, it was something as simple as, well, you left something blank. Well,
correct.
There's nothing to put in, but the agency doesn't know that. So leaving something blank could get you denied when you're supposed to put in, not applicable or zero or whatever it might be. So I know that the forms and they can be very tricky for caregivers, and caregivers are already stressed out to the max as it is, and then trying to do all of this and really not knowing the ins and outs of it. I always recommend that a caregiver consult an elder law attorney to help with that process. So thank you very much for explaining that. Also, when you mentioned VA and you mentioned a dollar amount, the VA changes this benefit, right? That periodically they increase the amount?
Typically once per year there will be a cost of living increase. I think this year was like 1.7 or 2.3%. It goes up a little bit each year. So you'll want to make sure that you stay on top of that. And they also changed the rules. So there was a huge rule change October 18th of last year. And so now it's gotten even more tricky. So depending on what transactions that you've made, if there's been any gifting, any purchasing of annuities, any funding of irrevocable asset protection trusts, or even something as simple as adding one of your children to your bank account, now with the new rules, they've changed the old rules, but any transactions that happen prior to the rule change are still governed by the old rules, while any transactions that happen after the rule change are governed by the new rules. So that even adds an extra layer of complexity to someone trying to go it alone, because they really don't know the new rules and they don't know what the old rules are, and now they're being asked to split the difference between which transaction happened prior to October 18th of last year and which transactions happened post-October 18th.
Wow, it really is complicated. I had a conversation not too long ago with a daughter on the telephone when I was at one of our offices, and she said, yeah, I just went to the bank and, I'm taking care of my dad, and he needed someone to write checks for him, so I just went ahead and just transferred all the money over to me so I could do it easily. And I thought to myself, oh no, now it's done, and she probably messed something up that she doesn't even realize what she did.
Well, that can cause penalties. It can cause someone who had benefits to lose them. If you're on benefits, whether Medicaid or VA, something as simple as selling your homestead, which during the application process, your home is typically exempt from the analysis. Well, if you move into memory care and you're no longer living in the house, and obviously memory care is expensive, many people will say, well, let's sell the house and let's grab the cash, and then we can use that to subsidize mom or dad's assisted living or memory care, and not realizing that by selling an exempt non-countable asset, turning it into cash, now, whether it be VA or Medicaid, catches that transaction and says, oh, wait a minute, now you have too much money to qualify for our benefits, so we're removing our benefits. And so you've kind of just shot yourself in the foot inadvertently. So that's one thing to make sure that you talk to an attorney about. And secondly, a lot of our caregivers are the spouse, the, quote, healthier spouse. As you know, the caregiver burnout ratio and the percentage of caregivers that actually will get sick or pass away before the person that they're caring for is a really big number. So when we're thinking about things like Medicaid, it might be simple to say, well, we'll just put all the money in the wife's name, and then we'll impoverish the husband, and we'll get the husband Medicaid. Well, okay, that in some instances will work. But the second part is now the wife has the assets. If the wife gets sick and passes away before the husband, which statistically happens often, now in that traditional will that says all to my husband if he survives me, now all the money rolls back to the husband who was receiving Medicaid, and now he will lose Medicaid. So we want to coordinate special needs planning in case wife dies before husband so that that money can remain available for his supplemental needs but not displace his VA or Medicaid benefits.
Yeah, there's so much to think about, and people really don't think about these things, and that's why it's great to have, someone like you coming on and talking about this, that people just really need to uncover and ask questions. Like we said at the top of the show, we tell you what you need to do before someone gets diagnosed. We need to tell you what to do during and after. And speaking of after, we're going to take our last quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the probate part. So you don't want to miss that. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and my guest right now joining me via the telephone from Tampa, Florida, is attorney and counselor at law, Michael Angelo Martellero. I think I got that one right that time.
You nailed it.
All right, very good. So we're talking about all things elder law, estate planning, VA benefits, Medicaid asset protection. Real quick, before we have to end our time today, let's talk about the probate. Now, probate is probably different in different states, just like Medicaid is, although Medicare is the same across the country. But a lot of people move to Florida when they retire. They live in all these other states. They might have wills from that state or power of attorneys from those states, and they move to Florida to enjoy the rest of their life. And unfortunately, one of the spouses, they get Alzheimer's disease. Things are going to change, and is probate something that people should be always updating, that the issue of probate is, or is a will enough, or does someone need more than a will? And why is it different in Florida than anywhere else? It's a lot of stuff I'm throwing at you, but I know you can answer it for me.
You got it. So I'll start off with saying that the information I'll give you is Florida specific at the moment, but I think generally is applicable nationwide. And I tell people all the time, I speak on these topics 4 to 6 times a week. I do public seminars, whether in communities or in the public in general. And I tell everybody, probate's a sucker's game. No one who has a choice wants to go through probate. There are attorney's fees, court costs, filing fees, publication fees, bond, paralegal fees. In Florida, the process can easily take 6 to 12 months or more before your beneficiaries get their inheritance. So why would you want to have your assets picked over by attorneys and courts and have the people you love or your causes, if you're donating to charitable organizations or religious affiliations or whatnot, why would you want them to get less and take longer to get it? And it really, what I find, is a lack of education. People have a misconception. If I have a last will and testament, my son will just take that down to the bank and they'll hand him my money. That doesn't happen. The banks are going to require a court order if all you have is a last will and testament. So generally speaking, the revocable living trust or irrevocable asset protection trust, if coordinated properly and funded properly, will always avoid the probate process. In Florida, your estate can be administered in typically 30 to 60 days instead of 6 to 12 months, and you're not paying all of the fees and costs associated with getting through the probate process. So rarely I will have someone choose or tell me they don't care about probate, and in which case that's fine. I've done my job by educating them. But most of the people are planning on leaving their assets to people or institutions that they care about. And so efficiency is the name of the game in probate avoidance. I've never had a client that went through probate and whose family later came back and said, wow, thank you so much. That was the best experience. I hope to do it again one day. No one says that. And so because of that, if we can avoid it, it is best for the client. Not always best for the attorney, because the attorney can make quite a bit of money in the probate world, but it's best for the client to avoid the process, and can always be done.
So people need to update their documents. How often would you recommend someone looking at their documents or updating them or changing them? Is there any particular time frame, or is it as life changes, or is it something when the laws change? What do you recommend for that?
So all of those, certainly any changes in your, I say that wills and trusts do the same thing. They answer two important questions: who's in charge, and where does your stuff go? And certainly if any of those questions, the answers to those questions change, definitely time for an update. Also, when the law changes, although almost always the old documents are grandfathered in, if the law changes, it's usually a good idea to get up to speed on it. So if you have the opportunity, adjust it then. And then I do have several clients that are on a kind of an annual maintenance plan with me, that part of my continuing representation of that client is quarterly or annual meetings where we go over what's going on from the healthcare perspective. Has anything changed? Do we need to add or adjust any benefits? And, what does the cash flow look like? How much are we spending? Or is there any adjustments needed on the estate plan? So I do have clients that come in annually, and we review everything. Just like you have a financial advisor, you should at least be meeting annually, if not quarterly or every 6 months. It should be the same with your elder law attorney. In a perfect world, many clients don't do it, but those that do, I think, are rewarded with better timing on their benefits coordination.
So what about the people that move down from New York, New Jersey, anywhere in the country, and they have a durable power of attorney? Is it typically honored in the state of Florida, or do they have to redo that just because now they're living in the state of Florida?
So generally speaking, every state has reciprocity with every other state.
Okay.
That being said, different states have different rules. And so in Florida, for instance, we have something called a self-proving affidavit on your will, which means you don't have to find those witnesses that might have witnessed your will 20, 30, 40 years ago and drag them into court to testify in front of the judge or sign an affidavit that they were really the people there that watched you sign your will. Often those people have passed away, or they have their own dementia and can't be a witness years later. So always a good idea to update your documents in whatever state you live in. Certainly one that a state you're planning on retiring in and eventually getting care or passing away in makes a lot of sense. Also, I tell clients all the time, if you're going to get old and get sick, Florida is arguably the best state in the country to do it. We have the ability that other states wish they had. You mentioned New York. In New York, if you want Medicaid benefits and you own a home, you pretty much have to sign your home over to the state of New York before they give you any Medicaid benefits. In Florida, I can shelter $1 million estates, and allow Medicaid to kick in. And then even after the person dies, I can prevent Medicaid from reaching into the estate and pulling out that home to repay them for Medicaid benefits and make sure your home goes down to your beneficiaries. But I need language in your power of attorney if you've lost capacity in order for me to pull all those levers and make sure that you get the best result.
So you have a practice, and I'm sure in Tampa and the surrounding areas you have a lot of people that come to see you then, and they're dealing with this issue of Alzheimer's or dementia. So I would just say to them, go and get everything updated, see you, keep on track. If someone wants more information, can they contact you?
Absolutely. We handle statewide, and I do have a satellite office in Martin County over on your side, www.mortollerolaw.com, or on the phone at 813-367-1500.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate all your time and your expertise, and you have a great evening.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. You as well.
So there you have it, Law Office of Michelangelo Mortellaro, and he's in Tampa. Again, 813-367-1500 if you'd like to call him and his office and get more information of anything about elder law or any of the topics that we talked about today. So we'll see you next time. Give somebody a hug.
For joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.